We joined the action at the 50-100 level when action folds to me and I look down at 7-8 suited in the cutoff. I open to 400 and get called by the button, small blind, and big blind. We go 4 ways to a flop of Jack 4-8 with 2 clubs. The small blind donk leads for 600 and it folds to me. I know this player is pretty tight and tends to play pretty straightforward, so when they lead here, I'm putting them on the jack at the very least. In a heads up scenario, I would definitely call here and reevaluate on the turn, but there's a player left to act behind me and I'm not sure what card I'm looking to hit. A 7 would put a straight on the board, the 7 of clubs would also make a flush possible. Ultimately, I decided on a pretty nitty fold, and the button folded as well. It turns out that 7-8 in this pot has around 20% equity versus a hand like Jack 10, and my opponent was giving me pot odds of 21, so it could have really gone either way between a fold and a call, but again, I think there are better spots to continue and I'm totally happy with the fold here. In this one, I pick up pocket 7s in the cutoff at the 100-200 level, the hijack limps, and I raise to 800. The big blind defends and the hijack makes the call. We go 3 ways to a flop of 6-10-3 with 2 spades. The hijack checks to me, and with 1 overcard to my 7s, I think this is a good spot to c-bet, both for value and for protection. With the flush draw on board, I want to go for about 2/3 pot, so I continue for 1500 and both players fold. Here, I look down at 10-8 suited in the cutoff after a couple of limps from under the gun and low jack. I want to thin out the field with a very playable hand in position, so I raise to 800 and both limpers come along. We go 3 ways to a flop of 8-4-6 rainbow with 1 diamond. Both players check to me, and I think this is another good spot to bet for value and protection. I don't need to bet big here since both players will likely have missed on this board, so I go for about a 1/3 pot and bet 1,000. The under the gun player folds, and now the low jack check raises to 4,000 and I go into the tank. The main reason for tanking is that I can't just call this bet, which is close to half of my remaining stack. My only 2 options are folding or going all in. I know this player tends to play top pair pretty fast, so I have to decide whether my 10 kicker is good here. I think this is a very, very close decision between a fold or an all in, but I ultimately opted for a fold. My opponent was kind enough to show an 8. I asked them later and they claimed to have a 10 kicker as well. All in all, I'm pretty happy with my fold here regardless of the result. In this following hand, we're at the 200-400 level and the hijack player has open shoved for 3,800. I'm in the small blind and pick up ace-8 suited. I know this player's shoving range is a bit on the wider side, and for 10 big blinds I think ace-8 suited is a fine hand to call with. I make the call, the big blind folds and we go heads up to a run out. The hijack shows king-jack, so I'm looking pretty good. The flop comes 8-5 queen with 2 clubs and doesn't change much. I still need to dodge a king or a jack. Turn is another queen, and the river is the ace of spades, and I'm going to bust my opponent here. GG. Next one, I look down at ace-queen offsuit in the cutoff. There's an open to 1200 from the under the gun 1 player. Both the low jack and hijack make the call. The raise is coming from a pretty aggressive player who can open a wide range of hands. The low jack and hijack love to see flops, so I have the perfect spot to 3-bet here. I raise to 6,500. Action folds back around to the under the gun 1 player who folds, which is a great result, but now the low jack goes all in for just over 10k. Surprisingly, the hijack also goes all in for less, they have about 7k. I'm obviously not going anywhere and I make the call. We go 3 ways to a run out. The low jack shows ace jack and the hijack shows ace deuce. So I'm in a great spot to win a massive pot here. The flop comes 4-9-6 with 2 hearts. The turn comes a jigga mother. I need a queen and a queen only on the river. It's a king. I had both players covered, so I get 7 big blinds back. It looks like variance is not quite done with me just yet, and the run bad continues. We are now at the 300-600 level, and I'm sitting on roughly 4 big blinds. There's a couple of limps from the middle position and low jack players before the hijack raises to 2,000. The cutoff then 3 bets all in for 5,200, and now the small blind 4 bets all in for just over 10,000. I pick up queen 9 suited in the big blind, and I happily stick the rest of my chips in with a chance to quintuple up. Everyone else folds and we go 3 ways to a run out. The small blind shows pocket kings, ouch, and the cutoff shows 4-3 suited? Of course, 4-3 suited smashes the flop, which comes 6-4-8 with 2 diamonds. The turn is the 5 of clubs, which gives me a flush draw. Man, what a sweat for kings. The river is a 9, I pair up, but it's not good enough, and it's time for me to rebuy. Back with the fresh 10k stack minus a few chips at the 400-800 level, action folds to me and I look down at Jack 10 suited in the cutoff and it suits me just fine. With 12 big blinds in my stack, I open shove in hopes of taking the blinds down. The small blind asks for a count and I'm not too happy to hear it as they are one of the tighter players at the table. They end up making the call and they have one of the worst hands for me in this spot as they turn over ace jack, so I am outkicked and I am going to need some help here. Some help I get as the flop comes king 9-6 with 2 clubs, so I flop a straight flush draw. Come on now, that's way too many outs to lose. The turn is a queen, boom! I make the straight. Still need to dodge a 10 on the river. It's another king. Nice to find the suck out here. I'm back in this tournament and ready to fight. In this next one, I look down at king queen offsuit in the big blind. There's a limp from the hijack before the cutoff makes it 2600 to go. I could go for a 3-bet here since I block kings and queens, but my stack size is a little bit awkward. If I make a normal 3-bet, I'm going to be pot committed, and I'm a little bit too deep to just rip it in, so I like to call. The hijack comes along and we go 3 ways to a flop of 6-7-7 rainbow. Not a bad flop for my perceived range, but I'm not going to do anything crazy. I check and action checks around. Turn comes the jack of spades. Once again, action checks around. The river comes a beautiful queen of diamonds. I make top pair, second best kicker. I'm not going to let this check around again. I fire for just under half pot and both of my opponents fold. Following hand, we're now at the 1k, 2k blind level and we join the action as the hijack calls the 2k. I look down at ace queen off on the button and the cutoff calls the 2k as well. With just about 10 big blinds in my stack, this is a slam dunk shove, so I go ahead and stick my chips in. The small blind, who has barely a big blind, makes the call. The hijack and button players fold, so we go heads up to a run out for peanuts, and the small blind shows 7-9 offsuit. The flop comes 4-6-4 rainbow, the turn is an ace, and our opponent is drawing dead. We bust him, GG. Action hand incoming. I look down at pocket sixes in the cutoff. I look up and see the low jack player open jam for just over 17k, about 8 bigs. I'm going to ISO raise and 4-bet jam, but the button wants to join the party and makes the call for 9700. I got both players covered. Let's send them to the rail, which in this case would be the cash game table in Deuce's living room. The hijack shows ace king. Okay, let's go, let's flip. The button shows pocket jacks. Good for you, good for you. Let's go to a run out. The flop comes ace 3 queen, so I'm in trouble. Turn comes an 8 and the river comes a king. I'm going to lose about half my stack there, but it's all good in the hood. With just under 7 big blinds left, I just need to find a couple of good spots and get myself back into the running for a deep run. Let's go. Literally the next shuffle, I look down at ace king in the hijack. I love to see it. I also love to see the low jack raise to 4500. I do my best impression of a tilt all in and shove my stack in. Action folds back around to the hijack who makes the call with ace 4. Let's go. What a great spot to double up. Let's go to a run out. The flop comes jack, queen, 6, rainbow. The turn is another 6, and the river is a 10. Boom! It's only now that I realize I made the straight because all I was thinking about was no 4, no 4, no 4. Let's go, we're back in this thing. A few hands later, I pick up pocket 7s in the under gun position. We're at the 1.5k, 3k level. I've got 30.5k in my stack, so that's 30 divided by, multiplied by, divided by 10? Yeah, 10 big blinds. Ship it! In the middle they go, and nobody calls. Glad to pick up some extra chips to survive the incoming blinds and buy myself another orbit to find a spot to shove. A few moments later, the big blind is what we call big alone, as the player who was supposed to be in the small blind just busted. The under the gun player limps, and I look down at ace 7 offsuit in the middle position. Once again, my 10 big blinds find their way past the invisible betting line, and action folds back to the under the gun player who thinks, and thinks before ultimately making the fold, showing ace 8. Let's freaking go! I do my best to pick up chips here and there, but as blinds go up to 2k, 4k, I'm struggling to stay above water. There's a shove from under the gun to 35k and action folds to me. They cover me, but when I peel ace 6 suited with just over 6 bigs in my stack, I'm gonna go for it and hope for the best. I close my eyes and make the call, and my opponent shows pocket 5s. Awesome! Super lucky for me to be flipping in this spot. Okay, so flips haven't been really going my way lately. Let's see if we can flip the trend around. Flop comes 7-3-10 with 2 spades, so it's not looking great. Turn is a 6. Yes! Yeah, baby! Woohoo! No! 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 Alright, this is a fun one. There are 8 limps. Yes, you heard that right. 8 limps in the 1-2 cash game before action gets to me in the big blind. Everybody's calling for a family pot, but I'm about to poop on this party. I make it 30 bucks to go. I like the big sizing here. I've been incorporating some feedback I've been getting from fellow vloggers. I appreciate the time they've been taking to give me that feedback. This is a very loose passive table where people love to see flops, so I'm going to charge them here. I guess the rampant inflation has found its way to this poker table. Even with the bigger sizing, this doesn't stop the under the gun 1, and low jack players from coming along. We're just going to play a casual 65 big blind pot out of position. My hand? Oh right, I have ace 10 offsuit. The flop is interesting. It comes ace 9-4 with 2 clubs. So I know in tournaments this is a spot where I can very often check since I'm out of position with 3 players left to act behind me. But in a cash game setting, I'm not too comfortable with this potentially checking around, as there are a lot of turns I don't want to see. I c-bet for 30, just under a third pot. I really like my sizing pre-flop. I don't like my sizing here as much. With 2 clubs on the board, I think a bigger bet of 80 would make more sense. It looks like more chips are going to go into this pot though, as the under the gun player thinks, then shoves for 127. Action folds back around to me, and I don't love this spot. The funny thing is, if I had bet 80, I would have an easy call for 47 more. I'm running through my opponent's possible holdings. What could they have limped and then called a $30 raise with pre-flop? I think bigger aces are out of the equation. I guess sometimes they could show up with like ace 9 suited if they're on the looser side. I could see them playing pocket 9s and maybe even pocket 4s that way, which crush me. And then there's all the club flush draws. I don't really have any information on this player, and I keep going back between folding and calling. I would really hate to call and see them flip a set, but my curiosity takes the better of me and I make the call. My opponent immediately asks how many times I want to run it, which I love to hear. I think they're probably on the flush draw. I offer them to run it twice. They ask if we can run it 3 times. I honestly don't know what to answer here, so I stick to twice. So we're going to see 2 turns and 2 rivers. The dealer flips the 8 of hearts. I look over to my opponent who flips Jack 9 of diamonds. Wow! I was not expecting that. Not sure if they were bluffing or value cutting themselves, but yeah, I'm in a great spot to pick up a big pot here. River comes the king of hearts, so we got the first board locked up. Second turn comes a 3 of diamonds. My opponent picks up a flush draw. No! 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 Are you kidding me? No! No! In this next one, I pick up ace jack of clubs in middle position, and there are a couple of limps ahead of me. I'm going to bump up the action to 20. Again, love the sizing here. Action falls back around to the under the gun 1 limper, who decides to min click it back to 47. Action comes back to me, and I'm a little bit puzzled. This player is definitely one of the most active players in this group, loves to call bets no matter the size, and I've even seen them run some pretty big bluffs in the past. I ask how much they're playing, and it looks like they have just over $200 behind. I've been slowly picking up chips. I made my buy-in for the tournament back, and I'm planning to head home soon, so I don't feel like bloating the pot just yet. Against this player, I also think my hand is way too strong to fold, so I elect to make the call, hoping to catch a good flop here and not kiss 47 bucks goodbye. A pretty good flop I catch indeed. 8, 4 queen with 2 clubs, I flop myself a royal flush draw. My opponent c-bets for 45, and while I didn't want to gamble pre-flop, this royal flush draw somehow feels like the nuts, so I go ahead and put my opponent all in. Not sure about this play, to be honest. I feel like I'm going to get snap called by everything that beats me in my opponent's range, such as the aces, sets, ace kings, king queen. Maybe I get ace queen to fold, and I'm not going to get called by worst except for maybe jack 10 or a lower flush draw that wants to gamble. So yeah, in retrospect, not super in love with the play, although I feel like most of you guys would have done the same in this spot. Let me know in the comments. Anyway, going back to the hand, my opponent tanks. I'm staring at the board trying to look as calm and confident as possible. They tank for a little while before making the fold. Glad to pick up this pot and add almost $100 to my stack. Alright, last hand of the vlog, and to spice things up, let's play some Dramaha. If you haven't watched my previous vlogs, in Dramaha you're basically playing 2 games. Omaha on the board, 5-card draw in your hand. You can win one hand, you can scoop the entire pot, or if you're running like me, you can also win nothing. This is a $3 bomb pot and 6 of us are in the hand, so we start out with $18 in the pot and we all go to a flop of 5 king queen with 2 hearts. Let's take a look at my hand. Ace, Jack, 7, 5, 4 with 4 diamonds. Not bad, not bad. Everybody checks around on this round and it's draw time. I didn't really pay attention to how many cards the other players were drawing because if I'm able to make the flush, it's almost guaranteed I'll have the best 5-card draw hand. So I get rid of my Jack of clubs and draw 1. Be a diamond. Be a diamond. Boom! I get the 10 of diamonds. I make the flush. Why is there not more money in this pot? The turn comes another queen, so obviously I don't have much on the board, but I'm going to value bet my flush when action checks to me. I make it 15. This is a pot limit game, by the way. You can only bet up to what's in the pot, and only one player calls. Lame. The river is another queen. Very confident I have the best hand down. I bet 50. Doesn't take too long for my opponent to raise to 200. If they somehow have my down hand beat, good for them. I'm not going anywhere. In fact, I put my opponent all in. They only have 40 behind, so it's a little silly. They're obviously never folding, and we're most likely going to chop this one. And indeed we do. Our flush is good, and our opponent shows the obvious quad queens on the board. So, kind of a uneventful hand in the end, but I thought it was really cool to make the flush, so I thought I would throw it in there.